Hello everybody. Alright, ScottX1307 back again. This will be my second attempt at the tag video started by 1904 Comics. Get to know a comic geek. I was tagged by the incredible Tim Morant, so thank you, sir, for tagging me. I haven't done a tag video in a while, haven't been too many going around, but these are always really cool. And I really like this one. Get to know everybody a little bit better. It's always a good thing. Get to find out some stuff that we didn't know. And so this is cool. I'm very happy to do this. It's got a list of 10 questions. Try to go through these quickly because the first video that I did ended up being 37 minutes for some reason. And that's just way too long. So we'll start off here. First question, he asks your name. Well, my name is Scott. And Scott with one T, just like in the channel name, ScottX1307. When and how did you start collecting? Well, I started reading comics. I was, a little kid. I don't know what age. But I remember picking up some Archie digests and things like that. Superman, Spider-Man comics from newsstand racks when they were still available when I was a kid. Especially Archie digests. They're always available at the magazine racks at grocery checkouts. Excuse me. Things like that. But it was probably about 1990 when I actually started what I would call collecting, where I started, learned about bags and boards, and started, bagging my comics. And it's also when I first found my first comic book store. I grew up out in the country, weren't any comic book stores around. One opened up in a little town called Covington, which was about 20 minutes away. It was a store called Cutter's Corner. Both Cutters and Corner with a K. The guy sold knives, all kind of knives, regular like knives for hunting, fishing, things like that, and fantasy blades, and comic books, which was really cool because it's two things I've always been into. But it was about 1990 or so when I actually started collecting, bags and boards and getting comic boxes and things like that. Started getting books on a regular basis as opposed to just now and then at newsstand racks. I was about 11 or 12. The first comics I started collecting was probably Spider-Man. I think it's true for a lot of people. When you're young, Spider-Man is probably the most relatable character. He's the everyman. Anybody could be Spider-Man, especially the geeks and the nerds and the outcasts. So Spider-Man was a big appeal to me, and I collected Spider-Man for a good couple of years. Also Superman and Batman. All three of those I collected up through the mid-90s. Superman up through the Doomsday storyline and the Funeral for a Friend. Shortly after that I stopped collecting Superman. Batman I collected up through the Nightfall, Night Quest, and it was somewhere after that when they made Azrael the new Batman that I stopped collecting Batman. I have picked up Batman here and there since then, but hasn't been as heavily as then. And same thing with Spider-Man, up through to about the Clone Saga, and when they started to mess with the clones, I lost interest. I do want to show here, I've shown this before, but one of the earliest things I remember having it's kind of like a comic book, but not exactly, was this book here. It is a big little book put out by Whitman of different Disney characters. I had this one here on Goofy in Big Trouble, or in Giant Trouble. And these books were cool because they have story on one side and a one panel of art on the other, and that's every page is like that. You get a page of story and then one panel of art. Let's kind of like a comic book, but not quite. I remember reading this before I started elementary school. I would read, you know, a little bit every night until I read it all, and then I'd wait a couple weeks and turn around and reread it. Had a few others. This is the one that I remember, though, and was lucky enough to find it at my parents' house. That's one of the things that led me to going into actual comic books. But the four titles that I remember first collecting, Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman, those three I kind of dropped, but X-Men. When I discovered X-Men and the appeal of X-Men, them being outcasts, I think any, especially teenager, can relate, and even up through adulthood, we can always relate to the X-Men in some way. And that's the one book that I kept collecting all the way up through early mid 2000s. I don't have a full run, but you know, that's the one book that anytime I would get out of collecting, when I came back, I would straight to the X-Men. Except for recently, I don't collect too many current titles. The ones I do are indies. But I have a friend I work with. He collects X-Men still, and he will let me borrow some issues now and then and read, so I can keep current on what's going on. Plus, he's always, you know, talking about it when I see him at work. So that's pretty cool. Then he asks your favorite show and or cartoon. So I'm going to do like a lot of people. It's hard to pick an absolute favorite in most things. So I'm going to go with what used to be my, I guess TV is maybe one thing that I have been able to pick an absolute favorite. But it used to be my favorite show, and it's still my favorite, like, non-current, Twilight Zone, the original Twilight Zone. Black and white, Rod Serling. There's actually my favorite episode. Oh God, what's the name of it? It's the episode with Burgess Meredith. It's the end of the world. He's down in the basement of the bank or the library, which is actually a bomb shelter, and of course, you know, it's nuclear war. He's stuck down inside. He comes out, finds the world destroyed, and then he's like, you know, all the time in the world to read the books. That's what he always wanted to do, was just read, and he breaks his glasses at the end. Time enough at last. That's it. My favorite Twilight Zone episode. Still, hands down, one of my favorite shows. One of the best shows ever put on TV. I can rewatch these episodes 1,000 times, and they still don't get old. As a kid, my favorite live action show was probably Land of the Lost. I watched that show religiously. I'm sure it was reruns. Came out in the late 70s. I was born in 79, so I watched it in the early 80s on reruns. But that show was it was amazing. It didn't feel like a kid's show at the time. My favorite current show, though, and it's become my favorite show of all time. Although I will admit, I think the rewatchability, if that's a word, of this show is not as high as Twilight Zone, but it's still my favorite show. Walking Dead. I waited my entire life for a zombie TV show, and we finally have one, and it's done right. It's done really well. It's less about zombies and more about people, but zombies are there. So my second favorite current show would be Doctor Who. I've always been a big Doctor Who fan. I remember watching it as a kid on PBS with my mom. I grew up watching Tom Baker. My favorite Doctor to this day. But I like the new series. Just watched the season 8 premiere Saturday. Loved it. I think I'm going to like this new Doctor too. But that's the other one that I try to make sure I watch. Walking Dead, I set alarm on my phone. I make sure I'm at least 10 minutes before the show. I make sure I'm sitting down waiting for it. Doctor Who, I try to make sure that that I'm around the TV when it comes on, though. But if I miss it, if I miss Walking Dead, I scream. Now, for cartoons or animated shows, favorite as a kid, it'd be hard to pick, but probably Transformers. Loved Generation 1 Transformers. I have the first season. I have the original movie. I remember watching that. I cried when Optimus Prime died. It still, it makes me kind of want to tear up even to this day. But it was a great show. I still like Transformers. Also like G.I. Joe. Was really big on Turtles, late 80s, early 90s. Turtles was my shit then. But also watched He-Man. The shows that I find that I want to find on video now are ones that are really hard to find. At least to me, it's like Battle of the Planets isn't that hard to find. I remember watching that. It's also called G-Force, Robotech. God, that show was awesome, man. People died in that show. That was like unheard of in a kids show. Complicated storylines that carried on for multiple episodes. You really had to watch the whole show to know what was going on with Robotech. It's just amazing. Of course, Batman animated series. I was a teenager, and this show is awesome. It's one of the best animated shows ever. Of course, everybody knows that. Nowadays, though, I still watch a lot of animation, watch Cartoon Network. If I'm turn on the TV, I don't watch a lot of TV. In the past 4 years, I really don't turn on the TV much at all. It's pretty much only if Walking Dead is on, Doctor Who. Otherwise, I am watching Cartoon Network or History Channel, Discovery Channel, trying to learn something. But more recent, and I think my favorite animated show, one of my favorite shows of any kind of all time, is Full Metal Alchemist. Just a great show. That at its heart, it's the story of two brothers and what they go through to protect and help one another. It's great. If you like TV, if you like shows, animated or live action, doesn't matter. I recommend Full Metal Alchemist. You'll like Full Metal. And Adventure Time. I love this show. It's so great. It is so not a kid's show. It's awesome. Finn and Jake. It's a great show. Makes me laugh, and like I said, it's definitely very adult oriented. But everybody's watching Adventure Time, right? All right, pets. No, I don't have any pets. There's a stray cat in our neighborhood, or a bunch of stray cats, but there's a gray and white one that's become friendly, and he'll show up at the house every few days. Can pet him. He's gotten to the point where I can pick him up a little bit, but I had cats when I was little. My mom, got me and my sister some cats. There's a couple of cats, orange, that orange and white tabby kind of cat. They were two, brother and sister, and they ended up running away. And we had several cats when I was a kid. Usually they were more my sister's pet. There was a dog that followed me and a buddy of mine home one day. We were out riding bicycles, and it followed us, 6 or 7 miles home. We couldn't get rid of it. It wouldn't leave. We took it back to where it found us, or we found it, however you want to look at it, to the area where we first saw it, and tried to find out where it lived. Could not find anybody that owned that dog, even though it had a collar. So I kind of ended up adopting that dog. Had it up through high school. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18, a little too early. Dog had to stay behind. Moved into some apartments with a buddy of mine that didn't allow pets. and he ended up passing away a few years after that. Had a couple of cats with an ex years ago. We broke up. I kept the cats. She just kind of disappeared. So I kept the cats for a little while. I couldn't hold the place. I couldn't afford it by myself, so ended up losing that. Had to let the cats go. I gave them to my mom and dad, and they took care of them until the cats, they got fairly old. They were 10, 12 years old. It was a black and another, big orange tabby cat. The orange one passed away, and the black cat just kind of ran off. So right now, don't have any real pets, which is cool. I developed a slight allergy to cats. Not severe like some people's. I can be in the room with them, I can pet them, but if I pet them and then scratch my eye or anything like that, they get red, itchy, inflamed. If I get a hair in my eye, good God, it's like it glues itself to my eyeball, and I can feel it for the next day or two, and it's just almost unbearable. And I hate that because I'm a cat person. I love cats. Cats are so much like people, which is great. The stray cat, it's like a friend, shows up from time to time, says hey, might eat dinner, and then it leaves. So, works for me, works for the cat. Where do you live? I live in Georgia, about 30 minutes, 40 minutes east of Atlanta, a little town called Loganville. What cereal do you like? Don't eat a whole lot of cereal anymore. I'm not big on milk. I love cheese, but I'm just not big on milk. About the only time I have milk is with cereal. Probably two favorite cereals of all time, Peanut Butter Crunch, and then when they came out with Reese's Puffs, I was like, whoa, my favorite candy in a cereal. But I also like a little more healthy or non-sweet cereal. My favorite would be Crispix. I like the double-sided rice and corn. Stays crunchy in milk, doesn't go soggy too fast, and tastes really good. Also like Corn Flakes, Frosted Flakes, Chex, Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios, things like that. But I'd say Peanut Butter Crunch and Reese's Puffs, two favorite of all time. Next, what's your birthday month? Mine's February. February 13th to be exact. So, when it comes around on Friday the 13th in February, I get real excited because, unlike most people, I like Friday the 13th. Those are usually a little more lucky days for me, and when my birthday is on a Friday, that's usually my luckiest day of the year. Other than that, I'm not real big on birthdays. Most of the time I could care less. Phobias. I'm sure I have some phobias or a phobia that I'm just not aware of. Probably has something to do with other people, because I'm not the biggest people person anymore. Something, with crowds or failure or something. But I don't really have anything that just prevents me from doing stuff, so I don't really consider it phobias. I have a slight fear of heights, but I can go up in high places. I ride the rides at Six Flags and stuff. There's a ride at Six Flags, Acrophobia. It pulls you up the center base, and it's circular. It pulls you up 100-something feet in the air and makes you look straight out into the air. And then originally the seats would take, and once it had you pulled up in the air, it would tilt so that you would face the ground. I ride that ride almost every time I go to Six Flags because it is the only one that kind of scares me. And it scares me because, first, the seat that you're in is like a saddle, so your feet are dangling. They're not on a platform or anything. Like in the other ride called the Free Fall, you're in like a box, so you're enclosed. You don't feel like you're really high up in the air. But on Acrophobia, your feet are dangling, and there's nothing below you. Plus, it makes you look at the ground, and then when you fall, and the ground goes, whoosh, and it's just like, whoo, straight in the face. that's kind of scary. But I write it because it does scare me, and I have to write it to prove that I can do it to myself. So I don't really consider that a phobia. I'll climb a ladder, I'll get on the roof of a building. I can get in a skyscraper and look out a window. I don't like being on edges that much, but that's just mainly because I don't normally trust people around me. Not so much, like people I know, but, strangers. It's not so much I'm afraid somebody's going to come up and, just outright push me over an edge. I'm more worried about somebody not paying attention and just blindly bumping into me just hard enough to tip me over the edge. That's more what I'm afraid of there. Snakes, spiders don't bother me. I don't like seeing a spider crawl on me, but I usually, if they're just in the house, I'm weird. I don't just automatically kill them. I usually try to grab them and throw them outside. I'm kind of a bit of a Buddhist that way. Kind of like all life is sacred kind of thing. I used to quote, a line I saw. It was actually in a Japanese animated show. It's, what's the value of a life? What makes a man's life more important than a worm's life? And it really hit home one day. I got to thinking, I'm sure that worm values his life just as much as I do mine. There are some exceptions. Houseflies, roaches, things like that, kill on sight. Mosquitoes, they should die. So, like I said, I'm a bit of a Buddhist. Not really. But I like that idea. So I'm not really scared of those things. The snakes never bother me. I grew up in the country. I've picked up a bunch of snakes. I know how to pick them up. They don't scare me. Got bit by a dog when I was a kid. Dogs don't really scare me. I hate chihuahuas more than I hate big dogs, though. The little ones are the ones that, they're hard to kick or hard to catch or anything, If you got one attacking you, it's like it can chew your ankle off before you can even find it. A big dog you can see coming. Other than that, I don't know. If I have a phobia, it's probably something to do with rejection or failure, because I hate both, but I think that's common in a lot of people. And then the last question is origin of screen name. My screen name is simple. I didn't sit there and try to come up with some fancy name, some spectacular thing. I just chose my name. Then the X1307. X is my favorite letter of the alphabet. I don't know why. And 13 is my birth number, plus it's my lucky number. I chose it as my lucky number because it seems to be everybody's unlucky number. And 7, 07, I chose because 7 is about half of 13, and plus I know a lot of people that consider 7 unlucky. I don't know why. So I figured, heck, two numbers that are unlucky for a lot of people, probably be lucky for me. So that was it. I use ScottX1307 on a lot of login stuff. I use it with some of my school stuff and email, things like that. Yep, that's it. So hopefully this video is shorter than the first one I filmed. It's a great tag. I'm going to pick the cop-out method. I'm going to make this easy for myself. I don't know who else has not been tagged. A lot of people have. So if you're watching this, you haven't been tagged, and you want to do the video, please do so. I'm sure everybody would appreciate it, and it's a great way to get to know everybody. So thanks again, Tim, for tagging me, and thanks to 1904 Comics for starting the tag, and thanks everybody for watching. If you stayed through all my rambling, I really appreciate it. So that'll do it. Until next time, everybody take care, and keep reading those books. Later.